Good morning, Morai v'Rabotai, Bruchim Abayim. We are continuing on Masechet Rosh Hashanah, and we are on the last line of the Chaf Gimel, Amud Aleph, by the two dots. Today's Amud is being learned as a Zechut Rufah Shlema for Rachel Simcha Bad Nahid, Daniel Moshe ben Farangis v'Avraham, Binyamin bat Rina, Kayla bat Nazi, Sigalit bat Yafa, Levi HaLevi ben Leah. Should all have Rufah Shlema. This Amud is also dedicated to Ilu Nishmat, Shahin, Esther bat Yehuda, Harav Ezra, David Halevi ben Naftali, and Harav Moshe Yisraeli ben Binyamin. That their neshamot should have an aliyah b'ezrat Hashem. Amen. This month's learning of the community has been graciously dedicated by the Shei family. It should be an ultimate zchut for their mishpacha. Amen. So the last thing that we mentioned, a bit of divrei agada, was speaking about Arzeh Levanon, which actually, pun intended, usually a reference to the tall standing statures of Klal Yisrael. And the Gemara was speaking about the fact that we have 10 different types of cedar, and from there the Gemara basically mentioned that all of the wood that the Goyim took from Eretz Yisrael when destroying Beit HaMikdash, destroying Eretz Yisrael, they're going to be bringing back. And we saw that from the Psukim. And then the Gemara went further to say, aside from returning all the things that they took, they have to upgrade also. Meaning, obviously, they're going to bring back the wood, but they're also going to bring upgraded material for everything they took. If they took copper, they're going to be replacing it with gold, and so on and so forth. And the Gemara said, woe is to the Goyim, because those things they could be replacing, but there's no replacement for a Talmid Chacham, there's no replacement for Rabbi Akiva, v'chaverav, a reference to all the tzaddikim, and especially Asara or Gemalchut, that were killed. Who are you going to be bringing back instead of them? And the Gemara darshaned it on V'niketi damam lo niketi. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, yes, I could bring certain replacement. I could try to cleanse the goyim from the avla, from the destruction that they created, by the means of them doing tshuva and then replacing things that they took. Aval damam lo niketi, but the blood of the tzaddikim, Rabbi Akiva v'chaverav, that I'm not going to wash off. There's nothing that you could replace that with. And we mentioned also that Rabbi Akiva always is the person that is mentioned as the example of all of the Chachmei HaMishnah, and here in this case would be Rabbi Akiva v'chaverav, him being mentioned as the only person for Asara or Gemalchut. We don't mention the other names because every Kulan, Ali bad Rabbi Akiva was the semel of Torah Baal Peh. And we mentioned also that Rabbi Akiva perhaps was brought in the Sfarim that whereas Moshe Rabbeinu was not zoche to Shar Chamishim of Bina, the Gemara that we had before, connecting the two ends of this together, that 50 gates of understanding, levels of understanding of Torah was created, and Moshe Rabbeinu did not get that was a reference to Moshe Rabbeinu that merited understanding of 49 of those 50, but not the full 50, and yet Kol Yakar Ra'ata Eno, Chazal say Ze Rabbi Akiva v'chaverav, right? And what's Gematria? Kol is 50, right? That Rabbi Akiva perhaps was zoche to the 50th Shar, and we mentioned also Rabbi Tzadok HaKohen Milublin writing that the reason Moshe Rabbeinu was not zoche to that was the fact that Shar Nun is miyuchad for Ba'alet Tshuva. And Moshe Rabbeinu, for his greatness, was nothing to do tshuva on, but that Shar is for Ba'alet Tshuva. Rabbi Akiva obviously was one of the classic, but not just about tshuva, that he started everything at age 40, but he also was a Ben Gerim, so he really was a newcomer to Torah, and he superseded the level of all the other regulars, even his Rabbeim. Now, we also mentioned, based on the Gemara there in Masechet Menachot Daf Chavtet, that Rabbi Akiva's level, he was like the Moshe Rabbeinu in Torah Sheba'al Peh. right? So you have the Gemara there that when Moshe Rabbeinu goes up, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is making crowns to the Otiyot, and Moshe Rabbeinu asks him, he says, Mima akev al yadcha, basically, why are these? Which indicates that Moshe Rabbeinu did not understand why you would have crowns on the Otiyot, right? If he would see the tilim shel halachot, he would obviously not ask that question. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers him and says, La'atid lesof kama dorot, at the end of a number of generations, there's going to be a person, a fellow called Akiva ben Yosef, that he's going to understand these things. He's going to darshin tilim shel halachot, truckloads of halacha on every kotz v'kotz. Moshe Rabbeinu asks to see him. He sees his Torah. He says, wow, right? He was very impressed. According to the simple understanding of Rashi there, he didn't fully understand the concepts Rabbi Akiva was discussing, whatever that means, right? And he says, he showed me his Torah, showed me his Sachar. Then he saw the end of Rabbi Akiva. He was shocked. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, Shtok kach ala b'machshava, right? And Rabbi Akiva is always this olam shel machshava. Kach ala b'machshava is the essence of Rabbi Akiva. But the Maharal of Prague writes in Tiferet Yisrael in Perek Samach Gimel that Rabbi Akiva was the beacon, the source of Torah Shbal Peh in the level of pratiyut. Moshe Rabbeinu was the level of klaliut Torah. So, however we slice this is a very difficult thing to understand, but Rabbi Akiva is always the one that's mentioned. The Kulan Ariba de Rabbi Akiva. Like the Gemara says, Stam Safra is this, Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, Safra Sifri Tosefta, and even we know Zohar HaKadosh, who is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. All of those are Kulan Ariba de Rabbi Akiva. All of them, they got what they got from Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva becomes basically the father of Torah Shbal Peh. There's a whole lot to talk about Rabbi Akiva and his life. Again, also corresponding to Moshe Rabbeinu's life, because both of them started kind of like at the age 40, and then they had another 40 of growth and the 40 of giving, right? So Rabbi Akiva also had that same, both of them lived 120. There's a lot of comparison to be had between Rabbi Akiva and Moshe Rabbeinu, but again, we do what we do, and we go on. So says the Gemara, we mentioned the previous Mishnah, the fact that originally, before the Kutim and the Baitusim, they messed with the system of signaling from mountain to mountain. The way we communicated with the Gola was through Masuot. They would have large fires on top of large poles that they would wave on top of a mountain, signaling to the next mountain, and so on and so forth, until it would get to the Gola, quote unquote, to the exile. So now we have to understand what this, we mentioned a bunch of names of mountains, 5 of them to be exact, and then from the last one, they would stay there waving the fire until the entire Gola, in the language of the Mishnah, would light up. So all of those languages, we have to understand, says the Gemara. The Mishnah said, where would they do this, the signaling with the fire? And the Mishnah goes through the 5 names, and the last one of them was Umebet Biltin. Now, it seems, says the Chachamim, that the other 4, the names that the Mishnah mentions, had stayed in the Talmud Gemara the same, but this last one, did not stay the same. So they're wondering, what is built-in? Where is that, right? Says the Gemara, my Beit built-in, which one is that? Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Zu Biram. The name of it in the time of Gemara, the Gemara clarifies, is what they knew as Beit Biram. So it goes, fine, I understand. That's like, it seems from the Gemara that this was like on the border, the end of the border of Eretz Yisrael, right before the border of Babylonia started. This is what the mountain was over there. Says the Gemara, my Gola, so when you talk about Gola is, Bavel is a massive country, right? Bavel of back then, included parts of Iraq and maybe Iran of today. It was a massive territory. So from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, where in the Gola? You talk about the entire Bavel would see this little thing on the mountain. I mean, you have your limits of how much you could see, right? The maximum you could see in a great night with naked eye of nowadays. Maybe nowadays it's because of the a little bit of a light pollution, but not maximum on a massive mountain fire, not something that you could wave. You could see 100 miles, right? It's not a simple thing. We're talking about Bavel being way more than that. So says the Gemara, no. We're not talking about the entire Bavel. We're talking about only Pumbedita. Now, a little historic factor in the time of the Gemara, Pumbedita was the center of Jewish life in Bavel, right? The other cities were very minor in their population and Jewish life in comparison with Pumbedita. Pumbedita was the happening place. So when we're talking about Gola, we are specifically talking about Pumbedita. From there, once everyone in Pumbedita knew, it was very easy for the news to quickly travel, and the entire Gola actually would know about it. So Rabbi Yosef says, Zu Pumbedita. So what is it, says the Gemara, my Kimdurata Ish, that the entire Pumbedita would become like a ball of fire, like a torch? What does that mean? Tana, we learned, it was not like one shaliach Beit Din or one gabai of Pumbedita that would stand on top and wave something big, but every individual would take a torch and go on top of the rooftop and start waving their torch, right? Until the entire Pumbedita, it must have been an amazing scene to watch. Imagine the entire Pumbedita. You have like all this Jewish city that everyone is on top of the roof with torches in the middle of the night. That's what they did. And this would be like the not just the signaling back to the mountain that we got the point, but rather this was the way they had it, that everyone in Pumbedita would know. Now, you didn't need necessarily to create extra buzz for the news of Rosh Chodesh. Now, everyone firsthand saw it from the mountain, and this way you didn't have to rely on anyone else. You would also eliminate the problem of anyone misrepresenting, like some by 2C coming and saying, "Oh, I saw it," right? I saw it. They would say, "Well, we didn't see it." That's one of the things that when you think about the Matan Torah versus any other claim in the world, right? There has been never, every major belief system in the world believes in Matan Torah. There's nobody that denies it, right? There's nobody that denies it. They may say, well, he took it and then after he changed, whatever it is. But nobody denies it, and nobody claims it to be something similar for themselves, right? Nobody has this. Joseph Smith was on top of some mountain climbing, and then whereupon he stumbled upon the angel of Moroni that gave him a book that he conveniently lost on the way down, together with the dictionary of the language. So there you have that. And same is with every other major belief system. That was not in front of masses of people. The revelation was not in front of masses of people. Why? Because mass revelations you cannot fabricate. Right? It didn't happen. Imagine someone would come and say, last night I saw the aliens on top of a mountain. So no one's gonna. What are you gonna say to him? You should go to a mental house. No, so he saw it. He says he saw it, right? But if someone says, well, it was on top of the city, hovering for 5 hours, and everybody saw it, right? So then he will say, well, I didn't see it. Did you see it? You didn't see it. He didn't see it. In 2 seconds, it will be completely nullified and denied, right? So, and that's the point of this as well, that when you had a need for everybody to know it firsthand, you just wait there for everybody to see it, everyone would signal back that we saw it. And now it cannot be forged, it cannot be made up, it cannot be misunderstood. Right? In a foggy night, you can't say, well, I thought I saw something on top of the mountain, but everybody saw it. You have everyone's mindset in sync. So that's what they used to do. So says the Gemara. Tana Rabbi Shlomo Yisraeli Omer, Af Charim veKayar veGeder veChavrotea. It's not only these mountains, but there are a bunch of other mountains. Now, this is not so simple because there are two different ways of understanding this. There's a bunch of other mountains that the Gemara mentions. Ikadamri Beni Beni Havu. There are those who say these were in the middle of the other mountains. The other mountains were the big ones. This were the smaller ones. And there are those who deny that and say no. Ikadamri Rach Kisa Eretz Yisrael Havu. Those who say no, this was the other side of Eretz Yisrael. It wasn't just one side of Eretz Yisrael. You had the Bavel. This is one line of news, right? That had to go travel to Pumbedita. So you did what worked for Pumbedita, but you still have other places that you have to signal to. Again, Bavel was slightly north and obviously east of Eretz Yisrael. That's why in Bavel they used to call Eretz Yisrael Ma'arava, right? The west. So, but you had completely to north and to like Syria, for instance, that would be a place to signal as well. So Mar Chashiv, the High Gisa, or Mar Chashiv, the High Gisa. So the Mishnah is only focusing on the direct line to Pumbedita, and the Braita over here is focusing on the other lines, or one of the other lines of information that had to go out as well to other destinations. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Ben kol achat v'achat shemona parsaot. Between each one of these destinations was shemona parsaot. Now shemona parsaot is 8,000 amot, right? Every parsa is 4 mil, every mil is 2,000 amot. If you add it together, so again, the 5, if you say, then this is what becomes complicated, because you have to now go through every shita in the Gemara, right? If you had only the 5, and let's go with that because the Gemara just rejected the other one as being a solid piece of information. So you have 5. So 5 times 8 is a simple math. It'll be what? 40. What's 40? But 40 would be if you have 5 distances. If you have 5 mountains, how many distances do you have in between them? 4. 4 times 8 is 32. That's a simpler math. So you have 32 parsaot in this line of information, right? That goes. Now the Gemara is going to ask the obvious question that when we go is a longer distance. Says the Gemara, by the way, that is so 30,000 plus 30,000. It's 30 kilometers plus, right? According to Chazon Ish, would be 36, almost 37 kilometers, right? So it's not a crazy amount if you think about it. Says the Gemara, Kama avulehu tlatin v'tartin is 32 parsaot. Wait a second. Nowadays, a lot more. When you travel from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, you wish it was 32 parsaot. So says the Gemara, Amar Abaye, istatum lehu darki. Says nowadays is much longer because after the Churban, but beforehand you had like major highways, and it was Eretz Yisrael was a thing, and people were traveling. Eretz Yisrael was a place that everyone came to be, ole regel and so on and so forth, and therefore you had major open pathways, and they were straight. All of those got desolate and destroyed, and now we're using offshore pathways created by ourselves, going up and down and side and twisted and so on. So obviously it's much longer, but the helicopter way, so to speak, would be 32. So says the Gemara, Dichtiv, the pasuk says, "Lachen hineni sachet darkech besirim." Again, as part of the nevuah and the destruction that's going to happen. So one of the things is the change of the pathways, as it says in Hosea Navi. Lachen hineni sachet darkech besirim vegadarti et gederah untivoteha lo timsa. You won't find the regular open pathways that you had. And from Nachman Bar Yitzchak Tashin, from a different pasuk, mehacha dichtiv, in the pasuk in Echara, it's gadar derachai begazit netivotei iva, that the netivot, the big pathways where iva were made crooked, and you can't find the straight lines of the pathways that used to exist any longer. Says the Gemara, Chaser gedola hayta b'Yerushalayim. Now, you have to treat these people who came from their houses to Eretz Yisrael, right? Imagine you see the new moon, and you have a coffee in your hand, you just drop it and run, right? That's what it is. You run. You get to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim rather. You get to Yerushalayim. How do we treat the people who come? Now, there is a major problem with a person that comes out of his place on Shabbat. In Chod Eruvin, you have, actually, the Shabbat morning, we just had this in the Smicha program, right? We have 3 levels, right? There's a level of Tchum Deoraita, which is 12 mil. There's a level of Tchum Derabanan, which is Alpayim Amot. And then there is the concept of your makom as your immediate surrounding, the 4 amot around you, right? That's now, if a person goes out of their tchum Shabbat, right? Let's say you walked 2,050 amot outside the city, and then you all of a sudden chap, you say, well, wait a second, I'm out of my tchum. What happens now? Now you're not allowed to go back, right? You hope to Hashem that you have a Gemara with you, because you're going to be sitting there chazering Rosh Hashanah for the rest of Shabbat until night, right? Nothing doing. You could go only 4 amot, right? That's your place. So halachically speaking, these people who came to Yerushalayim to testify, once they come to the Makom Beit Din and they make the testimony and they finish the sentence, what happens? They should turn into pumpkins and just sit there, right? Because halachically speaking, they're outside the tchum. Until now, they had a heter to come, but now who is matir for them to go around? No one, right? So that's what should happen. So what? You're gonna just leave them there, without anything the whole day of Shabbat? You know what's gonna happen next time? They're gonna have a headache when they see the moon, and all of a sudden their ankle is going to twist. A lot of reasons for why they can't walk. They're just not going to come, right? So it says the Mishnah, Chaser gdola hayta b'Yerushalayim ubet Yazek hayta nikret. They had this massive open area. It was called Bet Yazek, and that was the place of the meeting of the Beit Din with this edim, right? They had an amazing setup over there. Ulsham kol ha'edim mitkanesin. All the edim that would come, that was the address. Ubeit Din botkin otam sham, and the Beit Din would schmooze with them there. That's where the Beit Din would meet with them, would take them one by one into a room, and cross-examine them and all that. But it wasn't just that. It was a very fun place. Udot gedolot osin lahem b'shvil shayu regilin lavo. They had, Pats and Shilohs and Lagandola and all of that. Next, all the big caterers were there, and they had, the candies and ice cream and lunch. Mamash, they went all out to make it pleasant for them when they came in. They should be eating and be able to enjoy the rest of the time, right? So says the Gemara, why did they do that? Bishvil she'eu regilin lavo. this was an incentive for them to feel comfortable that when they see the moon, there would be no questions in their mind. Say, okay, Baruch Hashem, I saw the moon. I have an off Shabbat. Now, off we go to have a fantastic time. So says the Gemara, "Parishona lo hayu zasin misham kol hayom." Originally, before the Churban, they would not move from this Bet Yazek the entire day. It was large enough of a place. It was nice enough of a setting, beautiful catering. People would stay there the whole Shabbat. One of the takanot that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai did, again, we mentioned this many times, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was an interim Nasi, even though that he was not from the proper lineage of, the line of Nesi'im, he was the interim Nasi, and he made many takanot that saved the Jewish life and integrity of halacha, going into transition of having the Beit HaMikdash to going to the era after the Churban, which was a devastating era for Klal Yisrael. So one of the takanot that he did, again, earlier on we had the whole sugya of Yashan, right? And now the additional takana that he made was, he said this is not good enough. People, it doesn't cut it anymore for people. So people come in, you need a bigger incentive. What's a bigger incentive? Because again, it wasn't like what it was before. The commitments were not the same, and so on and so forth. So he said, we're going to let people be considered like a Ben Yerushalayim. The guy comes from anywhere that he's coming from, he's going to be halachically considered a Ben Yerushalayim. So what he could do is not just stay in the chaser. Still, they had the food and everything. But if you want to go sightseeing in Yerushalayim, bechavod. Right? You want to go see the kotel, and you want to go and go outside. Even 2,000 amot outside of Yerushalayim, hazak ubaruch. Right? You could do all of that. That's obviously an incentive. So I'm going to Yerushalayim. At least I get to spend the Shabbat walking the streets of Yerushalayim, going, seeing relatives, and so on and so forth. That's a bigger incentive for them. So says the Gemara, Hitkir Rabbi Gamliel, Hazaken, sorry, not Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. My mistake. Rabbi Gamliel Hazaken was metaken sheyu ma'alechin alpayim apa lekol ruach, that they should go 2,000 amot lekol ruach. They should be able to go not just outside the place called Bet Yazek, but they should also be able to go to the entire Yerushalayim, and not only that, they should be considered like a real Ben Yerushalayim to go 2,000 amot outside of it as well. So it says the Gemara, not only this, but even a midwife that would come to help give birth to a baby, and someone, a Hatzalah member that would come to save someone's life, or back in the day, if there was a big fire, the entire Klal Yisrael was a fire station, right? They had to come, save people's lives, go inside, make sure the kids are out, the elderly are out, and so on. You needed every person that you could afford was another life-saving individual. So it says the Gemara, or min hagayas, sometimes they would be attacked, or min hanahar, sometimes they would have a flood of a large river, and people would be drowning by the minute. You needed manpower to go take them out, take the kids out, and so on and so forth. Or if they had like an earthquake, and now you need manpower to take people out, and so on. Anyone that would come, we would incentivize their coming by not limiting them to their 4 amot or to the place that they are in. They could be considered as Anshe Ha'ir, and they would go 2,000 amot lekol ruach. Says the Gemara, when we say Bet Yazek, which one is it? Is it Bet Yazek Tenan or Bet Yazek Tenan? What's the difference? Now, the difference is the meaning of it. Bet Yazek Tenan, Yazek is a lashon. This wasn't a name of a place. This was a nickname for this courtyard that they had. So obviously the nickname was called based on the nature of the thing. So Yazek is lishna malia, is a positive language. right? It comes from the pasuk v'yazdekeu v'yasalekeu. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu will protect Klal Yisrael, would surround it with a round geder avanim, beautiful, strong, secure wall, and empty the michsholim, the stones on the way. It would be amazing, right? So that's Bet Yazek. If it was a Geschmack place, then it would be called Bet Yazek. Or Dilma Bet Yazek Tenan. Yazek is a negative language. Lishna the Sara is a language of pain and sorrow, as the pasuk says, Vehu Asur Bazikim. Right? It is chained and closed down with shalshalat, with chain. Amar Abaye. Abaye says, Tashma Sudot Gedolot Hayu Osinaim. Abaye says, what's the shaila? So they had all this fancy caterings. It's amazing. So Abaye says, it sounds like it was an amazing place. The Gemara says, no. Dilma tarti havu avdibu. Maybe both of them are true. Because, again, before Rabbi Gamliel Zaken was metaken this takar that they could go out, they are asur bazikim. They are chained to one place. The whole Shabbat, they can't go anywhere. They have to be in this courtyard. But at the same time, they made it very gishmak. So it was, yazek, but it was also yazek. Both of them have the truth in them. So therefore, the Gemara doesn't necessarily end with a clear thing of what it was called, because both elements were there. And Be'ezras Hashem will pick up the next Mishnah in the next year. Chazak Baruch.